from Nepal. I care greatly about period poverty, removing it, but also how do we do in a way that is specific to each country's. The way we think about menstrual poverty in the United States might not be the same impact in other countries. So my proposal was that we need to create country coalition resources so that, for example, the partners in India should have resource that is specific to India that they can access while running the period in India. So I did research in their top 10 countries, everything from what are menstrual stigmas in that country? What are menstrual laws? What are the policy recommendations? What can period do and who can period collaborate with? And I put together country coalition resources for those 10 countries. This is just like some example of the data analysis I did. It was all in R. Since they had a lot of data based on locations, most of my data was spatial data. So I think they appreciated being able to see how fast their company is growing just in pictures and graphs. And the 10 countries that I worked with were US, Canada, India, Mexico, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Japan, and Uganda. Again, I cannot emphasize enough that as somebody who is really passionate about advocating for women's health, I think I learned so much just doing research about how women's health and menstrual poverty even enacts in all these 10 different countries across the globe. What did I learn? I think this summer of 2020 was such a crucial part, such a crucial time to be doing the work I got to do, because we're at the height of racial pandemic and a global pandemic. And as Shania said, even making this internship possible required a lot of adaptation from my side, but also the company side. But I think something that was very, very unique to me is like, as somebody who is an advocate of women's health and women's rights, I had a very particular specific idea of what that meant. But working with period, there were times where we took a pause, put everything we were doing aside, and we're like, how do we become part of this bigger fight against racial injustice in the country? And that did not seem far away from what their original goal was. And I think that really, really added to my perspective of what it means to advocate for something, what it means to advocate for equity. And I definitely really, I think that really added up to me, both personally and professionally. And as I said, it was a little bit risky because these are the things I want to do. This is what I will give. So it was very on me what results I was able to produce. And I'm very grateful that they trusted me with the process. And I think I have worked as a research assistant for professors at Reed, Professor Kimberly Clausing and Professor Tristan Nice-Wander. But the academic research are so niche and so well guided. It was really interesting to expand what I've learned at Reed in the real world and do it on my own. That was a very valuable skill I learned. And teamwork. If you guys have not already heard in the news, period went through a big executive change over the summer. The acting founder had to leave the team for some reason. There was a big turmoil, but I was absolutely like impressed by how they stick with each other as a team. And more than that, I feel like even though I was there for just 3 months, summer of 2020, I was immediately a part of the team. The managing director made sure to check in with me every week how I was doing with all the protests and COVID. And all the people in the team would reach out to me, just like thanking every time I present a report. And I think little things like that, as a leader myself, as somebody who aspires to run similar organization in the future, I got to see the power of teamwork in action. And that was such a privilege, I think. And one of the big part that I wanted to, again, cannot emphasize enough for the donors and for who make this Summer Internship Award possible, especially because I'm an international student, which means because of the visa issues, I cannot do off-campus jobs. If I choose to do it, just has to be volunteering opportunities. Had it not been for Summer Internship Award, I could have never gained this experience because I cannot afford to work without being paid. So the only reason I was able to do this and have this experience off campus was because I was able to create this position, but also say, hey, I can bring my own money. The financial reason is not the reason. So I think this is on behalf of the entire international student team. Like, that's why I'm very grateful for this award. As a PCA, who is a peer career advisor, who's also a liaison for International Students Office, every year when it comes to like Summer Internship Award, this becomes such an important part to be like, you can do things off campus and not have to not worry about money. So that was really big thing for me to finally go outside of Reed and see how I will thrive in that environment. What's next for me? As I said, I'm very, very passionate about the topic of inequality and equity. So my senior thesis is based on modeling inequality through varying rate of returns on investment. And just right before this meeting, I did my data analysis, like I was able to find the result, and we see direct correlation between return you get in investment versus your net worth. So that was really exciting. So that's what I'm doing for my senior thesis. I'm applying for graduate programs with PhD in economics and specialize in inequality and development economics. I'm the Reed nominee for the Knight Hennessy Scholarships Program at Stanford University. Knock on wood, we'll hear back soon. So I'm waiting for that. And I'm looking for similar opportunity for next summer because I plan to apply for Summer Internship Award again. And yeah, again, thank you so much to the CLBR and the donors for making this possible. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Clarissa and I'm the next presenter. So I was the Real Stories Summer Program internship, and I am a second year environmental studies and political science dual major and Spanish minor at Reed. I'm currently working from Oakland, California, living back at home with my family for the semester. Let's see. So a little bit of backstory. Real Stories was founded in 2013, and it's an Oakland-based film nonprofit serving gender minorities. It's the only nonprofit film program that's led by industry professionals in the country that's also owned, run by, and serving gender minorities. We have people who are hailing from Pixar, Lucasfilm, Disney, all of that different stuff. So we're really led by industry professionals, which makes us stand apart from other nonprofits. It originally was a summer camp, but it's since expanded to include multiple year-round programs across California. We had a few programs going, in Illinois randomly, and just around the country as well. Now that things are virtual, we have a lot of people coming from all over the place. So me and my internship specifically, this was not my first interaction with Real Stories. I actually began attending Real Stories as a camper in 2014 when I was 12 years old. I made roughly 10 short films with them since then. And I later served as a student board member for 3 years and a volunteer camp counselor. I went through like their first ever advanced camp, first ever year-round program. I was just there from the beginning pretty much, and was there for the evolution of the organization. So this summer, I created a small docuseries to explore how young female and non-binary filmmakers, particularly Asian filmmakers in our network, were being affected by COVID-19 with the racism in the beginning of the spring. And I helped transition all of our summer programs to a virtual in-person hybrid system, and I produced 2 films during our summer programs, or actually 3 films, that's a typo. So what I would do is I would, as a producer for those 3 films, I led a team of 5 campers, and I oversaw them as they created an entire short film within a 2-week period. Normally, as you can see here, we would serve between 100 to 150 campers each summer, but as we went into this hybrid system, we had to completely rethink everything, and we cut it down to only 30 campers with 2 15-person sessions. But honestly, so many other organizations completely died out this summer and didn't host any program. So the fact that we could continue in any form we considered very successful for us. And here's just a photo of me guiding my production group through the process of color correcting their film in Adobe Premiere Pro. So we use, professional sound equipment, professional film equipment, editing equipment, and they really get this hands-on experience with film and, production technology that they wouldn't get until maybe their 3rd or even 4th year in film school. So why I couldn't have done this without the Summer Internship Award. Real Stories is a pretty small nonprofit. They only afford to pay, 3 full-time employees and 1 or 2 part-time employees throughout the year. Funding from CLBR allowed me to enter a more long-term position with them since then. After I gained more, management and administrative experience with them over the summer, they hired me as one of their part-time employees for the fall. So now I actually lead the student board, which I used to, participate in for 3 years. So that's been exciting. And right now we're making a film. We go from, September all the way through March, and they're making a film about the election and voter suppression in this election. So look forward to that. And then why this work is vital. Why do we care about gender minorities in, the film industry? Basically, this is a study that was conducted by USC that just talks about inequality in 1,200 popular films from 2007 to 2018. And as you can see, 4.3%, oh wait, I got very foggy there. Anyways, 4.3% of directors out of those films were female. And I also just noted down here, it doesn't include any data from non-binary filmmakers or any other gender minorities due to just a complete lack of sufficient data because they're so underrepresented. So in our film organization, we have a lot of trans women, we have a lot of, non-binary, youth. And so we're really trying to serve the full spectrum of gender minorities. And here's just a little more data. Is, out of the 100 top films in 2018, there were no Black or African American females in 33 of them, no Asian or Asian American females in 54, no Latinas in 70, no LGBT females in 89, and it gets even worse when you get into these other minorities. So it's definitely a large issue, and the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement have really tried to gain some more attention and awareness of this issue in media. But it's been pretty incredible to have worked with an organization before those movements were part of, the popular mindset. And before people were really aware of this issue, I was already working with these women and these other gender minorities to, improve representation. So it's been nice to really take a larger step in the organization this summer and to really push myself forward into more of a career with them rather than just as a student or a volunteer. So the next steps in my career. Ultimately, I hope to study journalism or documentary filmmaking in graduate school and become an environmental journalist. As I said, since my internship, Real Stories hired me, I'm also the assistant program manager. And my experiences this summer also just gave me key skills that allowed me to stand out in a recent job interview. Well, not quite as recent as I first presented this presentation, but in a job interview with NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So they hired me from September until May as a content writer. And so I covered the US National Marine Sanctuaries for them. And the story that I wrote for them, my first story for them did 1,100 times or 1,100% more successful than their average story. So it went viral on Twitter or something like that about cephalopods, if anyone cares to read that. Here's my contact information if anyone cares for it. But besides that, I just really wanted to say thank you so much to CLBR, to the donors, to everyone else that continues to support them. My original plan for this summer was to actually be in Vietnam for 2 months. And I was one of the recipients of the President's Summer Fellowship. And so as that went out the door, the Summer Internship Award, presented me with a new opportunity and, something else to fill my summertime. And I'm very grateful that it's been able to propel my career so far. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Samantha Hordyke. I'm a junior physics major, and I use she, her pronouns. And this summer, I did environmental action work at MIT's Environmental Response Group. So a little bit of background info. The Environmental Solutions Initiative is an overarching group at MIT that handles all of their environmental action work. They help fund research. They also do a lot of communications work, and they have some really great scientists on staff. And my boss this summer was the director Professor John E. Fernandez, who's an expert on sustainable architecture and urban metabolism. So this group that I was a part of was called the Rapid Response Group, and it was John Fernandez's new creation of how we can trying to address the problem of getting students experience in policy and other environmental related issues while they're undergraduate. So each week we would pitch any environmental topic that we were interested in. So that ranged from, FEMA's wildfire response to, a very specific species getting a lot of attention recently because it's going to go extinct soon, or drug tests using animal products, and anything that we could think of. And then those projects would then be voted on, and we would select a couple each week that we would then start. So I think I worked on about 10 to 15 different projects. And this work was really cool because it was entirely student-led. Each student would have to come up with their own plan to solve one of these problems, obviously with all the resources that MIT had available and the advice of John Fernandez. But it was very much the students' own volition of how they would approach this project and how they would go about solving these really large problems. So I'll give two examples of projects that I worked on. One project I worked on was with the National Resource Defense Council, and it was involving the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. There is a legal opinion that was going around and also being used that while the MBTA says that it's illegal to hurt birds or kill birds, if the company or actor did not know that they were going to hurt birds, that meant that it wasn't illegal and that they couldn't face prosecution. And that would mean that things like large oil spills and other environmental disasters would have no repercussions, and we couldn't get any funding for fixing those disasters from the people who caused them. So I was working with the NRDC to review and summarize all the public comments submitted about the new interpretation of the MBTA, people saying if they're in support of it or not, from solar to oil and gas companies, from large economic institutes, and former EPA workers, and several backyard bird watchers who are very passionate about protecting their birds. And very luckily this summer, towards the end, the legal opinion was overturned in New York, so it's no longer valid, which is great. And then another project I worked on was researching water access in the Navajo Nation. This issue got a lot of press because, with COVID, especially not having access to running water in your home, it made it very hard to sanitize on a regular basis. So COVID was being really devastating in that area. So I worked on writing, and I'm still working on writing, a white paper on water access in the Navajo Nation. About 1/3 of Navajo families have to haul water every day. And often that's from unregulated sources that have a large amount of contaminants. And there's very limited testing done from the EPA on all the water sources in the area. So our paper was discussing where do these testings actually occur? What contaminants should you look out for? What's the history of uranium mining and other mining in the area, which severely affects the water resources? And also, what groups are already there acting? There are several Navajo-led groups already trying to solve this problem. How can you support them rather than trying to start a whole other group to solve someone else's problem? So we explained a lot about ethical engagement and how you need to talk to people in the area who are already trying to solve these issues before attempting to solve it by yourself. And luckily, this summer led to me being granted a job this fall. So I'm luckily now still working there with this group. And it's been really great as a physics student to gain research and experience of policy work, which will make me a lot more of a competent scientist, especially if I go into climate science. So thank you so much to CLBR for funding this, and to B. Hunter for helping me write so many emails, and to my boss, John Fernandez.
Hi, everybody. My name is Emma Bramson, and today I'm going to be telling you guys about my summer internship with the Community Investment Trust. So, what is the Community Investment Trust? It's a real estate organization that has two main goals. Firstly, to break down the barriers of investment, as investing, especially in real estate, does have a lot of obstacles that makes it difficult for lower and middle income people in the United States to utilize it. Secondly, to increase the community wealth in Southeast Portland. So how exactly are they doing this? This is Plaza 122. It's a strip mall in Southeast Portland. In 2017, the Community Investment Trust bought this strip mall and created a program in which the residents of Southeast Portland can make low-level monthly investments anywhere from $10 to $100 a month. As the building appreciates in value, the investors make money, and they make money through annual dividends. The average annual dividend over the last 3 years was roughly 9%. This means that if an investor invested $50 a month into the strip mall, at the end of the year, they'd receive $654. So my main project, which took me about 2/3 of my internship, was expanding a matrix of wealth building organizations. I define wealth building organizations as an organization that uses real estate investing to build the wealth of a local community. So this is the matrix that I started with, which was actually created by a Reed alum who had this internship the summer before I did. And this is what I transformed it into. Specifically, I added 16 more wealth building organizations, which you can see are the columns, and 13 more characteristics to judge them by, which are the rows. I created a corresponding key, which just talks about the 29 organizations in further detail in case someone wanted to look at the governance structure or specific means of investing for specific organizations. At the end of the summer, I created an analysis paper where I showed how the CIT set itself apart from organizations that were very similar. The main way they did this was through loss protection. The CIT was the only organization that had 100% loss protection. This means that no matter what happened to the real estate market, at any time, investors could sell their shares for the full value given at the last annual appraisal. Additionally, at any time, for any reason, investors can either pause their investments or lower the amount of their monthly investments if they want to focus more on saving instead of investing during that period. And if any of you would like to look at these documents in further detail, I'm so sorry, skipped a slide. Education. The CIT wants their investors to be fully educated on the decisions they're making. So they have a mandatory 6-hour financial literacy course. I actually had the opportunity to take this financial literacy course as an intern. And along with learning about the ins and outs of investing, you also learn skills that can apply to other aspects of your life, such as how to balance a budget and how to keep a good credit score. So if you would like to look at any of these documents in further detail, you can go to the website investcit.com under the resources tab. I also did a few other mini projects here and there, including editing financial literacy courses, concept papers at the high school and college level, reformatting the company's bylaws, and creating custom CIT face masks. So this internship, as well as all of the others you learned about today, was virtual. And one of the biggest takeaways I got from a virtual internship was the differences needed in time management. From being a full-time student to a 9-to-5 internship, there were definitely some management skills that I needed to refine. And especially being virtual, working from my childhood bedroom, self-accountability was severely important and something I became much better at throughout the summer. Also, Zoom, not only how to use it, but also how to represent a company through a virtual interface was something I had never done before. But throughout this internship, I was able to host dozens of Zoom calls with neighboring organizations as well as grant funding organizations and represent the company in a professional manner. And I would lastly like to thank the CLBR and the Summer Internship Award, because while I was so grateful for this internship, being able to transport it to a virtual internship, my laptop that I was using in the spring of 2020 did not have the processing power needed to have video calls, something I utilized a great deal during my internship. And it was solely thanks to the grant funding I received this summer that I was able to transfer this internship to an online interface. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jane Calderbank. I'm a senior anthropology major with a concentration in science, environment, and technology studies. And today I want to talk to you about my Summer Internship Award experience with Native Fish Society. I've been working with Native Fish Society for about 2 or 3 years at this point. It's been an ongoing partnership, and I have a fellowship position there. And this summer was a great opportunity, thanks to CLBR, to be able to continue my work there and dive a little bit deeper without the constraints of worrying about finances or where I was going to be during the pandemic. So what kicked off my initial interest in Native Fish Society and the work I do with them is a paper that was put out by Tasha Thompson that I have here that connects spring Chinook genomics to their rapid degradation in population as it relates to the Klamath River Dam system. And so as a Native Fish Society fellow, I've been able to leverage my skills in sociocultural anthropology in order to add kind of a social dimension to those findings. So this summer, while living in Portland, most of my work was made up by interviewing stakeholders, managers, genetic scientists. I also got to trace some of the legal developments as we move forward with the dam removal project in the Klamath Basin that will hopefully transpire over the next couple of years. And I also had an opportunity to read and really dwell on the intricacies of the site and how the human-salmon interface plays out there. I know this internship was virtual and most of it was happening during COVID, but I also do want to draw attention to before the pandemic with Native Fish Society, I've had the opportunity to do field site visits, attend ODFW proceedings, and spend time at the banks of the river, really getting to know the fish and their surroundings. So this summer, 3 key findings I have are the centrality of genetic science in environmental lawmaking and litigation. Genetic science has proved, as the resolution increases in our genetics technology, invaluable in proving the uniqueness and need to conserve and protect salmon throughout watersheds in the Pacific Northwest. And in addition to that, with my expertise, I was able to elaborate and ground the social and political dimensions of those decisions and how they would impact riparian communities, as well as food sovereignty and resource distribution across the region. And from the confluence of those 2 findings, the urgency of consensus building stood out to me. We have a multiplicity of ways of relating to the river and spending time there and relating to the resources that come from it. And it really brought to light how urgent it is with the decline of fish to come together and find solutions. If anyone recognizes this image, this is from the Umpqua River. These are holding pools where salmon stop and spend a little bit of time as they migrate upstream.
Jane, just a quick note, can you share your screen? We're not seeing.
Oh, is my screen not shared? Oh no. Can you see it now?
Yep. Oh,
okay.
There we go.
Sweet, thanks for letting me know. Oh boy, let me go back a little bit. So here's the Klamath River Dam that I was talking about, as well as the paper that initially inspired my interest in this project. And here is the holding pool on the South Umpqua. So as I was speaking to before I shared my screen, a diversity of disciplines are necessary for sustaining a livable world. And I found that although science has been fantastic in proving, as I said, the uniqueness of spring Chinook salmon in particular in the debates about Klamath River dam removal, that we really do need people who are experts in policy and social dimensions in order to connect those findings to the way that we live our life on the banks of the river. And something exciting that's come out of this work over the past few years is I've been able to articulate how we might live together in the future, and that is what is making up my senior thesis this year. Another exciting outcome from my summer internship with Native Fish Society was the ability to write and publish this article about how spending time at the bank of the river with the salmon is fundamental in developing a sense of connectivity with the environment, and how that might contribute to mobilizing environmental action in the future. So to finish, I wanted to draw attention, of course, to the professional outcomes of working this internship. But I also want to draw more attention to this sense of community that working this internship over the last few years, but especially during the pandemic, has provided, not only with other people who work in the area, but with people across a breadth of positions in sharing in relationship to the Klamath, and even with the fish. I do think that's an important dimension of this work, is really getting to know the ecosystem and biome in question. And of course, clarity for my thesis, as this has now gone on to build that work for me this year. If you have any questions about exactly how I'm theorizing what's going on here, or what's going on in the Klamath at all, please feel free to reach out to me. And thank you again to CLBR for the opportunity.
All right, and so we have one final presenter, Dylan. If you want to go ahead and share your screen, let us know if you can't. We can get you set up.
Hi, sorry, let me quickly set this up. Hi, so presenting what I did during the summer. Sort of my background. So I'm a psychology senior, interested in clinical psychology. So I plan to do a career in mental health professions in the future. International student. I was born and raised in Singapore. I'm pretty interested in like sort of connections between academic fields, science and the arts. I try and do a lot of interdisciplinary stuff if I can. And I'm really interested in like bridging the gaps between theory and practice. And I think this is what brought me to my internship, which is what I did. So I worked with the Human Services Research Institute. I got this internship through a connection with alumnus, Brittany Taylor, who graduated in 2009. And I worked in the intellectual developmental disability team. So it's a policy consultancy. So what they do is they would be contracted by states to conduct interventions on their disability services budgets. And so in what I did as part of my role was to work on a policy research, do quality assurance on like this data entry system that they had for surveys, some basic exploratory statistical analyses, and also worked on a research manuscript during this time. So just to sort of show kind of things that I did, yeah, these are some of the documents that I worked on. This one on the right here is is sort of a budget summary, a document that summarized like how the state of Minnesota does their budgets. Exciting stuff. Top left, let's just saw some program feedback that I gave with their data entry, and then the stuff on the bottom left is some of the stuff that I did some analyses on. So I basically explained this. They were trying to look at how the ratings of support required by people with disabilities fit with the professional ratings. So they have an algorithm essentially that sort of automatically assigns like how much support was expected to be needed by a person with a disability, and then compare that against people who are professionals who rated them. And basically the fit was pretty good for us, good. So good all around, which is good for them. This is a slide that I presented to one of the team. So this is implementation science. Okay, so I'll explain this a little bit. Essentially, there are, in mental health, there are interventions where you have a program that you sort of conduct, and then you have implementation, which is actually putting it into practice. So in clinical science, this area, very often we do efficacy studies where we see how well it works under controlled conditions, and then implementation is putting it into the real world practice. It turns out that very often you have good interventions, meaning to say efficacious interventions that are poorly done, and because they're poorly done, you get poor outcomes. So we need to look at both good interventions and make sure that implementation is also good in order to get good outcomes. So this is just me presenting to a team about implementation science. They didn't know much about this. I actually learned this by working with another team within the organization on the research manuscript I mentioned. So what I learned from all of this. So I got what I was looking for was a feel for policy work in human services, and that's what I got. I think I also got a really good understanding of like the kind of issues that policy workers face. Basically a lot of frustration, apparently, with like working with stakeholders and trying to get them all together to agree on things. Also issues with like translating like sort of like evidence-based programs into practice. That's sort of where implementation comes in really. And yeah, they had a lot of trouble with that in general, just because of bureaucracy, and it's all really very, very bureaucratic. I learned some, I guess what you call hard skills for like data presentation and data analysis. I learned some Power BI, which is kind of cool. And then I also got to make a lot of meaningful connections with people. I'm actually gonna meet with some of them during the winter, just because I was working with them remotely throughout the summer. So that's pretty nice. The team culture as well in this, it's a nonprofit, so like team culture was really like, it felt really collaborative. And I was really quite amazed with the way that they shaped, that the leadership of this team shaped the team culture. And then of course I discovered a whole new field of implementation, which is actually what is probably going to be my graduate program of study. So I'm probably gonna aim at doing a PhD in clinical psychology, potentially looking at philosophy of science as well as a master's. This direction of implementation is really, I think, is a really good one, and I'm gonna sort of commit myself fully to that. And after graduate school, research, implementation, working with policy. And that's my presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dylan. Folks, that concludes our round of presentations. I mean, you already know this, readies are amazing. It was so great hearing you all present again. And I'm just really excited to see, how the process of getting to do this internship has really given you all some really awesome experiences and skills and people in your network. We have about 10 minutes for questions of our panelists and presenters. And feel welcome to, if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions, or if you want to post in the chat, you're more than welcome to do that too.
I wanted to say, you all are fabulous, really, and you present so nicely, and it's inspiring to see what you've learned. So when I think about anything that I might ask, I'd like to just ask you each questions about what you're bringing back as you are thinking about the connections between your internship and your classwork. And so I don't know if there's anything, in my experience, so many things kind of connect serendipitously. But are there things that as you came back for the fall that were surprising to you as far as connections? And anybody could take that one.
I think I spoke a little bit to this in my presentation, but just like sort of, I think what was a really good experience coming real sort of this real world working experience is like sort of seeing the messiness of things outside of this bubble that we have here in Reed. I think that's really like important for us to experience, because you know we're sort of insulated, and I think getting out the side of it is it's valuable.
I think I would say, since so much of Reed education is based on conference style classes, I think there's always growth to be done about when to take this space and when to elevate the voice that's already in this space. And I feel like this summer was such a great time with everything happening in the world to be thinking about that. And I think through my internship, it definitely added to my perspective of how do I want to present in spaces, what are the things I want to advocate for, and how do I want to advocate for that. So I think that was like something I learned at Reed through my conference classes. But the way the internship happened, the timing of it, I think now I always reflect before I speak, because I want to make sure that that is the space that I should be taking, which was a very, very important lesson that I learned, I think.
I think I really just, working with the Zoom format really before it was, before I had to do this entire semester in a Zoom format was very beneficial. And, working with having to teach students who are coming from very different backgrounds. Not only are they coming from a wide range of the gender spectrum, but also we meet 100% financial aid. And a lot of our students are coming from various parts of Oakland and from very different, socioeconomic backgrounds. And so just thinking and really empathizing with people's differences, and especially the inequalities created by virtual education, was something that I was very aware of going into this semester.
Throughout my internship, I learned a great deal about gentrification and housing insecurity. And this semester, I'm taking a great deal of economic theory for my major. And so it's very textbook, it's very mathematical, but I can feel myself making the connections to the real world and like having that different aspect to think about my schoolwork with, and like that real world application. And I think it's really helped me stay invested this semester.
I really like what you brought up about serendipity. I think that my entire internship, at least, has been driven entirely by serendipity. I mean, I found out about the organization from a flyer on a random bulletin board, decided to reach out, and everything since has flourished from that moment. And Shisham, I think you can probably relate to that feeling. As far as unexpected outcomes from the internship, I think that my field of anthropology is often cast as disparate and uninvolved in these sort of techno-scientific infrastructural questions. But having the opportunity to kind of bring the two together in direct conversation has been incredibly grounding and kind of forged a path for me to see how I could bring what I know and what I know how to study to the table in these conversations after Reed.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate hearing from you. And if people are commenting on how impressed they are, I think we're all just in awe of what you're doing. Yeah. Can't wait to see what happens next.
Does anyone have any lasting questions? We might have time for like one more.
I was really surprised at how many people volunteered that this led to a permanent position with the organization or a job opportunity. And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I stumbled across the rapid response group at MIT through a lot of different cold emails with people at that group, and it hadn't even been created yet. And so at that time, when it was just getting started, it wasn't possible to hire non-MIT students, which is why the Summer Internship Award was so great. And then by just spending so much time with them, the director of the group told me that he would put in time to try and figure out how to pay me, and offer me a job. And I think that it's been really, really great to have that outside of my classes this semester, because as a physics student, I'm not going to be able to take classes on anything related to the environment really, especially in my core classes. So it's been really great to have that opportunity.
I was pretty surprised by the number of kind of career advancements I've been able to, partake in this semester, just compared to where I was second semester last year during my freshman year. Freshman year, you're so new to, I think you're not really thinking about your career or anything. You're thinking about like, oh, I just need to get through school and get good grades or whatever. And all of a sudden this semester, I work 25 hours on top of a full course load, and I have 3 jobs. So it's insane. And part of it this summer was just like, it launched so many things I really had not thought were possible in such a short period of time. And really this internship was the thing that did it for me, and it's been really incredible. So
I think in addition into launching our careers, maybe some of my fellow panelists can relate to this, but without the stress of having to worry about kind of the more material circumstances of how the internship would play out, I had the opportunity to really grow my relationship with my coworkers and people I was collaborating with in my research. And that has been super valuable to me in providing kind of a support system, as well as a potential network of people to continue collaborating with after Reed.
Yeah, actually, I'll second that as well and say that like some of the colleagues I was working with, like my supervisor was sort of telling me that like if you need like a letter of recommendation or anything, feel free to ask me. So I think that is a big step in career wise.
In my internship, as I previously mentioned, I got to communicate with dozens of fields that were like somewhat aligned with the Community Investment Trust. And I actually got a few offers for internships for next summer, as well as more connections on LinkedIn. So I think a lot of the not only opportunities of growth, but like concrete possibilities of the future were definitely given to me thanks to this internship.
I also think on this note, like as an international student, I could not continue. They offered if I wanted to work throughout the semester, but something that really I think about Reedies is like, given the opportunity, they're really good at advocating for themselves. And I think that's what leads to the continuation of jobs too. Because as a peer career advisor, I work very closely with a lot of people that I see that as like, you just need that initial spark and they will just run from there. And I think that's just like that's one of the reasons why I love working for CLBR is like, you see that initial spark and the way they run with it is just such a pleasure to watch. And yeah.
Yeah, not even just like, self-advocacy, just advocacy in general. Reedies, as we all know, are incredibly passionate. But it's been great, especially just like with the community on Slack and, with the presentations that's been created by the Summer Internship Award. It's been really interesting to see what everyone else is doing throughout the summer and have, be able to touch base with the Reed community during the summer vacation.
Thank you, all of you, for sharing so much. I mean, your experiences are so valuable, and I think it's so great that you're getting to share it with staff who, because of COVID, don't get to see Reeds as much anymore. So it's really great hearing about your summer experiences.
Thank you all. I'm going to take a minute and just close us out here. I know most of you. I'm Nate Martin, class of 2016 and operations coordinator for CLBR, and I help run the Summer Internship Awards. Over the last 4 summers, 2017 through 2020, we funded 133 students for summer internships entirely funded by donations from the Reed community. The maximum award is $4,000 and the average award has been around $3,400. We funded students from nearly every major and all class years, although most awardees and applicants are sophomores, juniors, and seniors. This is part of our mission at CLBR, advising students, distributing funds to explore careers and communities of purpose, and thereby giving students the opportunities to explore fields that might otherwise be inaccessible to them, which can lead to Reedies becoming active in and leaders in a wider variety of fields and workplaces, which then supports Reed's liberal arts mission of fostering both breadth and depth as students move through and beyond Reed. We're thankful for everyone involved, the students for sharing their experiences with us, and also all the advisors, fundraisers, and donors. Our students would not have these opportunities without the work that we all participate in. So thank you. And we're done.
Yes, I know. And we're done.
We're gonna call it now. I know no one can hear, but if you want to unmute, just clap for these people, go for it.
Thank you,
it kind of
everyone.
sounds like a weird disjointed clap.
Yay!
Yeah, I can hear like a
Thank
couple
you guys.
sounds.
That was great.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Great to see you guys.